What up, you guys? Jasati out here in Singapore, and as always, thank you so much for joining me on the Night Owl podcast. Lately, we've been deconstructing bad behaviors. Now, the last 2 episodes were about manipulating people, but I want to talk about how you get into a situation where you've learned a bad behavior in the first place, right? What does it mean to reinforce a bad behavior so it becomes a habit? Because let's be honest, y'all. Our habits are things that are reinforced. We try to do things every day at a specific time, and when it becomes easy to do those things, they suddenly become a habit. So let's talk about reinforcing behavior, shall we? We know what punishment and reward is. And if you think about it in terms of love and fear, or love and pain, we try to avoid pain or punishment, and we try to go towards what feels like love to us, which is why I teach the human needs and the 5 love languages, mostly because if you know those things, you know what you gravitate towards, you know what works best for you, and then you can ask better for what you want and draw boundaries a little more effectively, right? So let's get back into building behaviors and why they are so easy to reinforce and not realize that they're being reinforced. When you grow up in chaotic environments, when you grow up in, abusive households or situations where there's change all the time, or you never know what to expect, maybe it's an abusive parent, maybe it's moving from country to country all the time, maybe it's bullies everywhere you go. It could be anything, something that is quite chaotic to you. You're going to find any way that you can to kind of calm all the chaos down, to find a safe space for yourself. Some people will shrink away, some people will embrace it, some people will try to attack it head on and try to control the situation. So depending on what your need is, and the 4 human needs that I focus on, even though there are 6, the 4 major ones are the need for stability, to know what's going on, the details of, what happens, because maybe you grew up in a situation where you never know, and so you get panicky. You don't know what to prepare for. You've, had your heart set on one thing and find out that even though they told you this one thing was going to happen, something changed, and then now you're worried about, when the other shoe will drop throughout your life. Maybe you need love and connection because it became very, very important to you as a child. Maybe because your parents were not affectionate, they weren't encouraging, they weren't supportive, and so you always felt at odds with these people, so you always seek out relationships that provide that peace that you didn't grow up with in order to be able to feel like you're, somewhat normal, that you are being taken care of, that you belong somewhere in the world. So speaking of belonging, maybe you come from a big family and you're one of the middle children, and you felt like you weren't the oldest, so you weren't always being celebrated, and you weren't the youngest, so you weren't always being coddled, and so you feel like, in order for me to be significant, for me to feel like I'm important, I have to make my presence known. I have to become belligerent, or I need to take control of the situation. I need to make my presence known in every situation. And so I either cause chaos and drama, or I suck up all the air in the room because I'm always in trouble and need to be rescued. So any of those things could be the case, but they're just bad behaviors that are, I'm not going to say bad anymore. They're destructive behaviors that continue to be reinforced because when you do them, people react the way you want them to react. What's another one? The need for variety. Maybe you come from a very, very, very structured environment and you felt like you never had a chance to express yourself. You never had a chance to choose for yourself. Maybe it was all uniforms and very, very strict structured behavior. So you're not allowed to think for yourself. You're not allowed to do anything besides what's created as a culture within your home, and the need to rebel was kind of so strong inside of you because you felt like you had no choices. You did not want to just obey like a sheep and go along with the crowd. You wanted to experience life because maybe you'd seen people outside of your home seem to be enjoying their lives, seem to be doing different things than you were told was allowed inside your house, and now you feel the need to test those boundaries and see if you can, live life like other people are living it too. But that became seen as, rebellious behavior. Then you become a troublemaker, and a lot of times you feel like when you take control in order to make those decisions, that you are rewarded in the fact that, you do feel this exhilarating rush of, excitement when you do the thing you're not supposed to do, and then the punishment wasn't all that bad because you could suck it up and deal with it. So all these are examples of the 4 human needs, which are stability, variety, love and connection, which is one by itself, and then the need for significance. So if you look at bad behaviors or destructive behaviors and how could they possibly become habits, it comes down to, well, how often do you get what you want based on the behavior that you're exhibiting, right? Let's take temper tantrums for a moment. Children, you know what temper tantrums are. You've seen kids in grocery stores throw things, scream at the top of their lungs, fall on the floor in the middle of the aisle, basically trying to stop everything that's going on in order for them to feel important. They're creating a little bit of chaos so they get a little bit of variety, because maybe every time they go to the grocery store they have to behave a certain way, and they're not allowed to say anything, they're not allowed to ask for anything, they're not allowed to choose things that they would want to buy for themselves because there's so many shiny things in a grocery store, right? And their mom may be on a budget, they don't have the kind of money that they would like to have in order to be able to afford all the extras in life, and so they're on a budget, they got to take you anyway, and so go to the grocery store, buy the bare essentials, and you get upset because you want more than that. And so this child will throw a temper tantrum, right? Because they want something so badly, and what happens? They ask for what they want until they get what they want, and so then that behavior is rewarded, which means if you nag someone into doing something that you want, eventually they will give in, and you'll get what you want. So that means the first time it's done, you're going to try it a second time. Second time it's done, and you get what you want, you're going to try it a third time. And eventually it becomes, okay, I know how to get my way. Don't make me force you to give me my way. I'm going to nag you to death, or I'm going to throw a temper tantrum in order to get what I want, right? What's another behavior that we can think of to get people to do what you want? I've seen many cases where people come from situations or environments where they did not feel like they were loved. They did not feel like they were important enough to be taken care of. And so what they will do is they become hypochondriacs, right? They will diagnose themselves with some kind of an ailment or whatever, and then complain about all of the symptoms and hope to God that you suddenly get scared enough to drop everything you're doing and come rescue them. So that need to be rescued, right? I'm in trouble. It's that Lassie syndrome almost. But the point being that they are trying a behavior to see if they can get what they want. So they want connection. They want someone to be around them. And so they tell a tale of how they're sick and they want someone to take care of them. They can't do it themselves. They're too sick to be able to manage for themselves. And so they have manipulated information and told somebody, you know what? If you love me, this is what you would do. If you love me, you'd show me affection by stopping everything and taking care of me. And they will do it until they get the reward, which is the behavior that they expected in the first place, for someone to be around them. And then, once they have it, they're going to try and keep it as long as possible. Now, a lot of us do this in relationships, whether we realize it or not. We're trying really hard to make the person stay with us rather than trying to figure out if they're actually a good fit for us or not. That would become talks about beliefs and the way we were raised and family values and expectations of gender roles and stuff. So avoiding all of those things and making people feel like they need to be around you, they have no choice but to be around you because that's how you're supposed to show love, they will guilt you into feeling like you need to be around, which if you do stick around, then they've gotten what they wanted, and you reinforce that pattern of behavior that says, okay, it's okay to do this if this is what you want as a result. Now, and a really good example of that would be when I was in college, I saw a lot of girls who would get stomach cramps, suddenly be nauseous enough to throw up everywhere, maybe be really, really sick, headache, migraine, I don't know what, when the boys decide they want to go out on a boys' night and the girls weren't invited. So then they would manipulate the situation and force these guys to stay home with them because they need to take care of their girlfriend isn't feeling well. So rather than say, I don't want you going out with these people because I don't trust you not to hook up with somebody else, rather than talk about their fears, their insecurities, and work out a understandable agreement, come to an agreement somehow, right? In a way that would grow the relationship or strengthen the relationship, they would manipulate their behavior instead by suddenly being sick. They want the love and connection right now, here. They want the stability of knowing that you're going to be around. And so I'm going to be dramatic. I'm going to show you that I'm in trouble, that I cannot fend for myself. And if you really loved me, you would stay home and take care of me instead. So these are kinds of behaviors that are manipulative, that are destructive, not constructive, because you're not talking about the problem at hand. You're not talking about your fears and your concerns and coming to an agreement on how to manage those things. Instead, you're forcing the other person to behave a certain way. And once you get the desired behavior, the desired reaction or whatever, you're being reinforced in that behavior. You're being reinforced to say that, hey, you want the reward, you're avoiding the punishment. I want this particular behavior to happen. I'm going to behave in this particular way. And when I get what I want, it's almost like, hey, you know what? This works. Let me try this strategy going forward. So this is how habits happen. This is how people fall into old patterns of behavior, toxic patterns of behavior. This is how people bring their old baggage into new relationships, because this is how they get what they want. I'm going to draw a comparison that might piss a couple of you off. Now, when I was in college, we actually did a lot of experimenting on rats. Now, it wasn't, chemical experimenting. It was trying to figure out if their cognition was anything similar to ours. It was comparative cognition is what I was testing in lab rats. And so we would try to figure out if they could learn a specific pattern. And then we were trying to figure out, how many numbers they could learn and how long a sequence they could learn before they kind of like lost count or whatever. And what we eventually found out is that, people, just like rats, can learn long numbers if they chunk them into small specific sequences. So sequences as long as 3 to 5 digits long, because it's an easy enough pattern to remember. You can break down a very long number if you break them into 3 or 4, between 3 and 5 segments of number chains. So this is something we tested, and we realized this is what we can, we can teach or learn about animals. And how do we learn those things? Every time they went through a maze and they went through a specific pattern or whatever, if they got to the end, we rewarded them. Right? And so they would do it again, because what are they doing? They want food. We want to figure out if they can learn a pattern or not. And so we reinforce the behavior. Now, you've heard about Pavlov's dog. You've heard about, experiments where they train people to do specific things, where they train animals to do specific things. If you're into dog training at all, you know how to use bells, you know how to use treats to reinforce behavior. It's the same thing with humans. But for us, it's not always, a dog treat. It's not always something as simple as, oh, you get a gift at the end, you get, money at the end, you get, some kind of a physical reward a tangible reward that you can have at the end of, this behavior that we're trying to reinforce. But if you think about it, it happens all the time. Why do we go to work every day from 9 to 5, every day, month after month? Because there is a paycheck at the end of that, that toil, that hard work. Why do we cook at all in the house? Because we want food at the end of the day. And if we don't have the means by which we can go buy it conveniently, as in fast food, we have to go through the process of cooking, right? Why do we take a shower at all? Why would we ever take a shower? Because we've taught ourselves that the feeling of being clean is much more desirable than the feeling of being dirty. Why do we learn to wash our hair? Because we've taught ourselves that clean hair should feel squeaky clean, and that greasy hair is actually so dirty that you should, clean it, and it's not appealing, it's not desirable to look a certain way. And so all of our behaviors are very much learned. And so once you realize that, when we reinforce each other by complimenting each other, we're reinforcing a behavior somewhere. When we say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you made it on time, you're reinforcing the fact that they actually got up early and, took the time to get to somewhere with the time in mind. They were on time, right? When you complain about something that, is not to your liking, maybe, somebody burnt the food, you're disrupting a behavior that teaches the other person that, okay, you can't do it this way, you got to do it a different way instead, because you don't want to be criticized for burnt food again, because that is not the reward you're looking for, right? Maybe you're in the bedroom and you're trying something new for the first time, and you're not sure if it's going to be appealing to your mate or whatever, and when they compliment you or they moan and groan or whatever, you're suddenly reinforced with, okay, do this again because it felt good to me. All of our behaviors are reinforced or deterred at some point. That idea of reward and punishment is very strong throughout the course of our lives. We learn whatever we need to learn to avoid pain and to gravitate towards happiness. But we're also influenced on what happiness is meant to look like. We're also influenced on what reward and success and beauty is meant to look like, because compliments and criticisms work just like rewards of, gifts and punishment. So I hope this gave you more pause for thought, because behaviors can definitely be encouraged throughout our lives. This is where coping mechanisms come in the first place, because you're coping with some kind of pain, trauma, chaos, and you found a way to manage it. A coping mechanism is a system of behaviors that helps you manage some kind of situation in your life. And once you learn that this works over and over again as a child or whatever, it may become so ingrained in the way you behave in the world that it becomes a subconscious thing instead of something you're very conscious about. Which is why I go back and try to peel back all the layers for you to figure out why you do things the way you do. What made you think that this is the way the world is? Who told you you were naked, that you had to get clothed? So these are the questions I try to ask so that you have something to consider and realize that anything that you've learned can definitely be unlearned. I hope this helps. I hope this gives you something to think about. If you have any questions, comments, drop them below. I want to hear from you guys. But in the meantime, yeah, loads to consider. I love you guys. I'll catch you later. Bye.